we go, and welcome to the Impact Show. Today is June 1st, 2017, and this is episode number 4 of our 24-part series. I'm Bob.
I'm Nick.
And everything we do here is to help growth leaders, marketing leaders, overcome common obstacles and create breakthroughs in their companies.
That's how we make an impact, folks.
So we want to remind everybody, as always, it's a live show, originally broadcasted on Facebook, and then will be republished as a podcast on iTunes, on YouTube. But since it's a live show, and if you're joining us live on Facebook, we would love your comments, love your questions. We would like to bring them into the show as much as possible.
We thrive on them. We feed on them. And Bob, a little known fact is there's been some science and some research out that folks who attend live broadcasts like this and who actually comment and engage actually retain more information from the podcast or broadcast, thus getting a better return on their investment of time. So something to keep in mind, folks. If you comment to us, you may just actually learn and retain more.
So what are we saying here? We just don't want you to be wasting your time, right? If you're on here and you're spending 30 minutes with us, get the most out of it. Engage with us. Retain the information.
We love it.
Awesome. So before we dig in, we have an event coming up. We'd like to remind everybody. Nick, can you tell us about what is coming up here in Impact Land?
We sure do have an event, Bob. It is the perpetual sponsor of this show for the time being, and that is our Super Bowl marketing, training, and networking event that is Impact Live in Hartford, Connecticut this August. Mark your calendars if you haven't already. August 1st and 2nd. We are pouring our whole company's passion into this event. We are constantly tweaking and tooling around this, developing it. It's getting so exciting as we crystallize it. And we've even actually made some nice changes and some adjustments recently, Bob, maybe you want to catch folks up about.
Yeah, we made an adjustment to the pricing. We want people to be there, and we don't want this to be such a pricing, we don't want the biggest hurdle to this event for people coming to be the pricing. So we've adjusted the pricing. We have new pricing between now and until the show starts, or until the event starts. So the new pricing is for general admission, $9.99, and for VIP, $13.99. So this is going to be the pricing all the way up until the event, and we are excited and hope that you'll consider this as an option. Nick, we talked about this last time. We've poured our heart and soul into this event. We have an incredible lineup. You know, where else are you going to be able to spend quality time with people like Marcus Sheridan and Mark Roberge and Tara Robertson, Mike Volpe, and the list goes on and on. Peekaboo. We have such amazing people that have done incredible things in their career. Not to mention the attendees that are coming. They're CMOs, and they're peer-to-peer doing the same exact thing in a very small, intimate environment where you can ask your questions and spend a lot of time with them figuring out the value of that alone. It's super exciting. So we're pumped for it. Impact Live, August 1st and 2nd, 2017.
And we've grandfathered in all the previous ticket holders. So this is a deal for everybody. Just the market research we've shown here is if we could make those adjustments to get that pricing right for you folks, we could get some key people that we really wanted there, who wanted to be there, to make it work with their budget. So we're the fair thing to do is make it available for everybody. So I'm psyched that you helped us to come to this decision here, Bob, and we think it's the right thing to do for everybody.
We're looking forward to it. So let's move into our first segment. We're going to talk about what we're keeping an eye on. One thing I know I'm keeping my eye on, it's an article that came across my newsfeed this morning. I thought it was awesome, was the digital marketing skills that are most in demand right now. And the article is by a gentleman named Adam Richards, who is a former marketing exec for a Fortune 1000 company. I came across the article. It was in the Bangor Daily News.
Thought that was interesting.
Getting
the Bangor Daily News.
Yeah, apparently. So you gotta love the internet. Stumble upon all kinds of articles that pique your interest, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what inbound marketing is all about?
Yeah, good for the Bangor Daily News. We wrote a great article. Yeah.
So I came across it, and they didn't cite any research here, which I thought was a little made me question. So this might just be Richard's opinion, the author's opinion, but I still thought the 5 skills that they mentioned seemed right, and seemed definitely like something we should talk about today. So the first one they mentioned was SEO specialist. The quote I have here from Richard was, seeing as 93% of online experiences begin with a search engine, Knowing how to help businesses improve their ranking is a very important skill to have. Nick, what do you think about that?
I would certainly agree. And I think that is oftentimes with a lot of the marketing executives I talk to is where their heads are at. But I don't know necessarily that would have made the first of my lists. Perhaps not in that literal sense of keyword optimization, ranking in search engines versus creating the type of content people want that's appropriately and generally gets ranked high in the search engines.
Well, we do a lot of website throwdowns, and we're looking at those skills, or we're looking at those websites all the time. And I can't tell you how many basic SEO things are commonly being missed. If someone in your organization knows how to optimize your content so it will rank better and get found in search engines so you can drive more traffic, more awareness, it's not something that happens overnight, but it's definitely something that adds a ton of value to your organization over time. I would say that is a very important skill. Yeah, maybe not number one list. Maybe it's a little surprising. But someone that knows how to optimize for keywords, knows how to get content found in search engines.
Well, when you put it in that context, that you're right, it is pretty important. It's some foundational ways of thinking about your website and your content. So I may want to rank that pretty highly.
Number 2 on his list was video. And Richard says quality videos can be a site's golden ticket to engaging and converting customers. People love video because it's easy to consume and it's much easier for most to engage with than reading a post.
True.
I couldn't agree more when it comes to video. Number 3, this one was interesting too. Managing information technology systems. Wow. Right? And you think about this world where there are so many marketing and sales SaaS products, knowing how to utilize CRM, utilize HubSpot or Infusionsoft or Hootsuite, be able to make them all talk to each other, make them all integrate. Definitely a skill I would say is in demand.
And also, I hope he's alluding to understanding that the project management aspects and risks of implementing and integrating these different platforms. A lot of times, if you're not thinking about this the way an IT director might, you're not getting the key stakeholders involved. You're not thinking about user permissions and how information flows and security and stuff like that. And that can doom a lot of well-intentioned marketing efforts on platforms.
Number 4 on his list was community management. And Richard says, as a digital marketer, one of the most important skills you can have is the ability to create and cultivate a positive community on behalf of a brand.
Oh, so true.
That's a big one. And that's one area that I know we're focused on here at Impact is having community management a little bit better. And we're putting a bigger focus into Facebook and maybe a Facebook group. But how does a company really better engage with its loyal followers and even track and know who their loyal followers are and delight those loyal followers so they can become promoters more of the brand and even better customers. Mm-hmm. And then number 5 on his list was analytics. And that's a beast on its own. Having maybe a data scientist on your team, depending on the size of the organization, or just somebody that knows how to use Google Analytics. So there's your spectrum, knowing how to use Google Analytics all the way to being like a full data scientist, right? Mm-hmm. I agree with the list.
I do. And as I'm looking at it, Bob, now that you presented it, I'm thinking he says skills, but it's not like skills to look for in a single hire. If you can find a single hire who knows enough to be dangerous in each one of these areas, good for you. I would hire them. But I think, as I've seen here at Impact too, a lot of these skills are spread out across different slices of people's time and effort and energy and so on. So I think it's focusing on making sure you have somebody with that skill set on this marketing team, if you will. But I wouldn't just say, well, we can't find this unicorn person who has all of those skills. I don't think that's the main takeaway.
Sure. I mean, there's always hybrids, but you're always looking at, okay, are we getting a jack of all trades, master of none, right? Mm-hmm. One thing I thought was interesting, I was missing from the list of skills was content creation, a copywriter of any sorts. And maybe that's just not maybe in Richard's perspective, not a skill that's in demand. Maybe that was 6 on the list, didn't make it. But I just thought that was notable that was missing from the list. So the original article, like we mentioned, was in the Bangor Daily News, and we will include the link in the show notes. Mm-hmm. Nick, your turn, bud. What are you keeping your eye on?
Yeah, Bob. So I do, as the whole team is encouraged to do, and I'm sure as we can encourage all of you folks listening, is to try to spend a couple of hours every week reading up on things for your own professional development and making sure you're keeping up with your industry. So a guy I like to do that through is Seth Godin. So I don't know if any of you folks subscribe to his blog on TypePad, but I get his posts every day. They're really awesome. And one struck me recently, especially as we made decisions around how can we help get more people who want to come to Impact Live to be there, and how can we get more people on our team bought in for certain other initiatives and changing and evolving the company and how we work, things that other companies deal with. He had this article that came out, it was on the 24th, called Lowering the Bar. And he basically talks about sometimes how people are marketers or product designers are designing products for mass acceptance. That's been historically what companies have been trying to do, and that's historically the standard we set for ourselves. This thing I'm making, this cause I'm part of, this community I want to start, needs to be adopted en masse. It needs to be designed to do that. And in order to do that, we got to lower our standards a little bit. Think about like network television and the types of sitcoms that go out there versus what you can see in every sort of niche and flavor in Netflix. And what Seth is saying is that with the mass adoption and the platforms and the cost of the horizontal nature of information flow is literally what he calls it, means that the opposite is actually true. Now you can make big, bold promises and go for a niche and reach people there. And some people will actually follow you. So that got me and one of my colleagues on the business development team at Impact, Kyle Bento, talking about, all right, so what does that mean for us? And some of the things I talked about that we're working on. And he sent me this article from the Freakonomics podcast. I don't know if you folks are subscribed to that. I've definitely listened to a couple of episodes, and this particular episode he sent me, which was from the end of March of this year, really got me thinking, I got to subscribe to this podcast. It's the episode was called Big Returns from Thinking Small. And this took the whole topic to another level of thinking about behavioral economics and behavioral scientists. And on this episode, they interview a couple of behavioral scientists from the UK who say that they took things that I think we try in marketing, using social proof, helping see where somebody stands in the community and so on, to help enact policies better at the government level, to help get people to pay more of their taxes on time by telling them, did you know that 9/10 of the people in this country pay their taxes on time? You're part of the 1/10 that does not. Getting doctors to stop overprescribing antibiotics, which is building up too much tolerance in the environment, letting them know just how much more they're subscribing antibiotics than some of their peers. These types of things, which sound like marketing to me, the things that we think is marketing, is actually being done at the highest level, at the government level. So my takeaway from this for you folks is take a look at behavioral economics and behavioral science if you aren't already, because it's very much potentially even ahead of where we're all trying to go in terms of convincing people to make changes. And I think that was very relevant for our topic this week, Bob.
Love it. Love it. All right. So every episode, we like to do a little retrospective, looking back at the previous episode. A couple of comments came in that I want to make sure that we address. One of them came from our good friend Pete Kabuta, and Pete was telling me that he is looking to implement Agile at his new organization, DataBox, which is awesome. And what he didn't hear at the podcast last week was, how does something like Agile help solve for the customer, right? How does it incorporate customer feedback and making sure you're doing the right things to solve for the customer? So I did want to kind of address that today. Agile and Scrum are certainly processes that are put in place to get work done. And that's the heavy focus, right? Even the promise of Agile and Scrum is do twice the amount of work in half the amount of time. So in that theory, we spent most of the episode really talking about how it works and how it helps you get more done without burning out your team and making sure you're working on the most important things. But that's where are we solving for the customer really comes in, is are we working on the most important things? And that's really the role of the product owner on a Scrum team, is to make sure that we are solving for the customer. They have to be the customer proxy. They have to make sure they're doing their research and understanding what is the most important stuff that we should be working on right now. And then let the Scrum process make sure that work is moving along and getting done before you start putting new stuff in, if that makes sense.
No, that is good. And I guess it wasn't something we totally hammered home. What we talked about Scrum being a way that you manage priorities. but not necessarily how those priorities get decided. It's partially what we think, but a lot of what the client or the customer needs.
So going a little bit further than that too. So when we're talking about the work that gets done, if you're trying to solve for the customer, and really, I mean, that might start by understanding the customer. So maybe one of the high priority items or several of the high priority items is collecting user feedback. And maybe you need to dedicate some time, and maybe you have what we didn't really go into epics last time, but an epic is a series of stories or a series of work items that are all grouped together. Maybe you need to have an epic around collecting user feedback. Maybe that's a regular thing that goes into every sprint. So you're collecting that feedback. Maybe that work is done by the product owner or done by somebody more senior on the team that is then maybe fueling in. Based on what we learned, we should be reprioritizing our backlog. So we're working on the items that are going to solve best for the customer. So I hope that helps. If there are any more questions on how Agile solves for the customer, please let us know.
I could also add real quick, Bob, is just the flexibility. I know that's something that we play up and rely upon a lot when we're engaging with clients, is to be able to say, hey, if we switch, we can get started today. We can agree on moving ahead with this plan because we're agile. And if we decide that next month, based on what we learn in the first month, we need to switch something around, we can do that. It's about moving units of effort and points around. So I think the flexibility, the clients, at least from what I've dealt with so far, doing this now for the last 6 months, they really love it to be able to be flexible like that.
So these comments came in on the show notes, which were just comments on the article that we posted. So you're welcome, if you have any more feedback on last week's episode, to add comments there, or feel free to email us at show@impactbnd.com. There was one other comment here too, from Andy Verapapa, who I know very well. And he was talking about the HubSpot's acquisition of Terminus.
Yes.
And he says, it's interesting to see the HubSpot transition of Terminus. To me, this starts to bring together the tenets of inbound, what is known as traditional marketing. And before too long, I can see B2C marketing entering the mix as well, to round out the full portfolio of marketing offerings.
And for those folks who aren't familiar with last episode, we talked about the acquisition of this software company, Terminus, by HubSpot, is something about the account-based marketing space and that whole trend that's going on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So send in more comments. Let us know what you think. Are we right? Are we wrong? Give us your feedback, and we will love to bring you onto the show.
That's it.
What do you say, Nick? Should we jump right into the main topic for the day?
Yeah, I'm fired up about this. This is a good topic here, Bob, and I think it's very relevant to what we've just been discussing.
I think it is, and I think it's very applicable. We work with a lot of clients, and certainly even our own selves, we have to battle this a little bit. I think we're in a world right now where we are all overwhelmed, completely inundated. Did I get that word right? Inundated?
Oh, yeah.
With marketing messages, a bunch of people saying, pay attention to me, look at my products, let me get onto a call with you, buy this, buy that, right? And
it's crazy.
It's overwhelming. And to the people that are on the marketing team, they feel they're having trouble getting people to take action. So if we look at the frustrations from the buyer's perspective, they're overwhelmed. They don't know what options they should be looking at. There's too much coming their way. And there's way too many marketing messages. And from the marketer's perspective, they're having trouble cutting through that noise, delivering messages. And even if they do get that message through, and they start getting that prospect maybe to engage with them a little bit, they have the challenge where that prospect just maybe stops and doesn't take the full action that they want them to take.
I mean, Bob, we even had situations, and you've seen this as well, when I was onboarding customers from HubSpot. We even got them to get their management to buy in on doing inbound. And now here we are, day one, and suddenly we start losing traction.
Yeah.
So even after we have made the sale and they've decided I do want to change, it's still a constant challenge.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Because there really is a solution to a problem in many cases that the prospect might have, or the potential customer, right? Mm-hmm. And what we don't often think about as the marketer is what we're actually really battling is status quo. And we tend to miss that. So status quo is obviously what they're currently doing right now. It's comfortable. It's what they know. Yet the prospect might not be completely connected in their mind. I have a problem. I have pain. I have desired outcomes that I want to happen that are not happening. Yet I'm still comfortable doing what I'm doing over here, even though I'm not getting to the outcomes I want, and I'm battling all these pains in my life, right? And here we are as marketers saying, I have that, but we're having trouble getting somebody to take action, if that makes sense. So that's like the common problem. Our clients are facing that, right? We need to find a way to overcome that. And I do want to walk through maybe some suggestions on how to overcome that battle between the status quo. The reason why people are not making changes, and what you can do as a marketer to help better understand that and help make that change from the status quo to a real solution that's going to help the prospect. So
I love it. I love that you laid that out that way, Bobby, because I don't think, and even myself have fully appreciated that for all the efforts of what we have, we want to push this way. We've got our vision and so on. There's an equally big, sometimes not very well articulated or whatever force that's pushing this way that has its own unstated vision, its own unstated stakeholders and so on. So it's an equally big force, and we have to have a system, and we got to be prepared to acknowledge that force, not just have our own direction clarified. We have to overcome the inertia.
And, before I even go into the steps, I'd love to even tell a story first. I was going to tell this after, but I think it's so applicable to talk right now. We were working with a client recently, and one of the things they want to do as part of their sales process is they want to have people go to events. And they find that people that go to their events and are part of that audience and hear that messaging and see what goes on in that community, people that go to those events tend to convert at a much higher rate when they enter the sales process. So our team here is working on saying, okay, how can we get more people to go to their events? The challenge when they hired us was the only people that were going to their events were already customers. And how do we get new people to come to the events? And that was the challenge. And we looked at the program, and it was maybe not the most compelling reason to go to an event. It was lacking excitement. And what I did with the customers, I put them in their prospect's shoes. What I said was, I have an event coming up, or my friend has an event coming up, is the way I think I told them. And I said, I dropped a very kind of boring value proposition, although it was definitely going to solve a pain that I knew that they had. And I said, do you want to go? And they said, I have to look at my schedule. I got my kids, and I have, I got to make dinner, and my husband, he's working late, and he gave all these reasons. And then I added a little bit more value to the event. I said, well, the event has open bar, and you could bring whoever you want. And they said, well, that's a little bit more attractive to me. And then they started saying, okay, well, let me see what I can do.
I'm listening.
And then I had to burst their bubble by saying, okay, this is fake.
Yeah.
But what I wanted you to do is I wanted you to be in your prospect's shoes. Because the reason why you're only getting your customers, you're not getting new people, is because status quo, what you just went through, is exactly that was more attractive to your prospect. The value of the offering that you had, status quo won over going to your event and going to your offering.
Yep.
And when we add more value to the offering and really we're able to, and yes, I used open bar as an example. There's other things you could do to add more value to the event, right?
Yeah. The takeaway is not add booze. You're saying, yeah.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, you'd be surprised. Yeah.
But when we made the event more valuable and we were able to have an offering that beat status quo, then we saw how their personalities changed and how they were much more attracted to want to change status quo and take action. And that's what this is really all about. Mm-hmm. So the steps that I'm going to recommend, if you're trying to figure out, say, okay, you have people that are stuck, it always comes back down to research and not just asking a few questions, but really understanding step one here is really understanding what's going on in the mind of the prospect that you're trying to get to take action. You really need to understand their pains. You really need to understand their desired outcomes. Paint that story around it, create a persona, whatever you have to do to really understand that. What is their real desire for change? What's actually going to trigger them to make a change? understanding that and getting to the root of that. Like, for example, I said, okay, if you're trying to attract young professionals, which is what they were trying to attract, like maybe adding just a little bit more value, like opening an open bar, would actually get them to say, okay, I know I want to make this change in my life, but this event also seems like it would be fun. And outside of just adding booze, we came up with other ideas. Like maybe you can hold your event at a local minor league baseball game. And not only do you get to go to the event, but then you get to go to the baseball game after.
Bring your family, those people you might be excluding or something.
Exactly.
Right?
Just made the offering, the prompts we're going to do just a little bit better. So we could break that status quo, right?
And something else to underscore too for this section, Bob, from the example you just told us, was getting to market quickly and getting to your persona quickly with your offer to see where their pain points and their hesitations are. Like the fact that you were like, I've got this thing. Do you want to come? Then you can hear, well, I would, but, and now you can hear all the things that they consider more important than that, or considering better value. And you're like, how can I now make my offering either be better more important than those, or somehow enable them to get more of those things? If you improve your career, you'll be able to spend more time with your family. You'll be able to have more options if you get promoted and that type of thing. If we hadn't gone to market with Impact Live and gotten out and seen those ticket holders, the people who did join us so far and the people who are still on the fence, we would never have known that if we waited to totally nail it and say, this is how we can get 100% every time. You got to get out there first and test it.
And Nick, what you're talking about right now is step number 2. Boom. It's understanding status quo and positioning your offering so that it is 10 times better than status quo. Because just a little bit better is not comfortable enough for me to make a change. Think about the old saying, right, with IBM, right? No one gets fired for buying IBM. If you're a competitor to IBM in the late 70s and 80s, right, and you came out with a solution that was just a little bit better, well, there's a lot more risk, right? Because you could have just picked IBM and been safe. So, I think Apple was one of the companies that disrupted IBM to a certain level. They came out with something that was completely different and probably in some people's minds, the right audience, 10 times better. So people made a change. And that's the way we have to be thinking about this too. You have to come up with something that's so much better because what they're already doing, status quo, is so comfortable. So that's number 2. And number 3, this is where we really dig into it. It's belief, right? It's that validation. So not only are you having a solution that you're positioning to be 10 times better, but what are you doing to actually get your prospect to really believe and trust that it's 10 times better? So you can start going some Simon Sinek things here, like start with the why and talk about the how. But what other validation can you do? Because if the prospect doesn't believe it, they're never going to take action.
Well, I think the good news is, Bob, is that if you did the first step, which is to do your research and get to know people, you're already arming yourself with the experiences that you'll need to demonstrate that you understand that they're going through, to say, I understand what the alternatives are. I understand what the status quo is. I understand what has been holding you back. Those things stink to us as well. And that is why our offering, our event, whatever it is, we have addressed that. So being able to say, I know where you're coming from and I know why you're hesitant. I know why you might not have gone for this type of solution in the past. We understand what the alternatives are and their pros and cons. And we took all that into account when we came up with this offering for you. So I think both step 1 helps you drive step 3 and get that belief.
Love it. And they all go together, right? Maybe they're not even steps as much as they are just, you've got to think about all 3 of these things. And if you really are going to get somebody to take a change or make a change, right, then you have to really consider all 3 of these. So to include a couple of resources here, one that I want to mention is obviously the Simon Sinek video. If you're trying to get somebody to take action, if you have not seen the video, start with why, and how
it's a classic.
It really is. It really is one of my favorite ones. So we'll include that in the show notes. And Nick, there's another one I'm really excited to talk about here. And you got the book next to you.
I had when Bob asked me about this before the show, I was like, I got this on my desk, Bob, which just happened to be good timing because I was looking up something in it recently, but this is a great book. Go ahead.
I think we talked about this in episode 2. Value Proposition Design by Alex. I don't want to murder his last name. Osterwalder. Alex Osterwalder. there's 2 books in the series. He has Business Value Generation and then Value Proposition Design. If you were at Brewing Marketing and Sales Success last year that we held here in Connecticut, I talked about the value proposition canvas. But this book is awesome to help you understand and go through that process of what's of understanding what's in your prospect's head, and then be able to position your product so that there's enough value for them to want to take action.
I mean, the book itself, Bob, is almost an exercise in how to help overcome status quo, your own mental status quo to a new idea and stuff. It's got bright visuals, simple, straightforward concepts per page. It's got online resources. So you're kind of like, I'm kind of done doing the book thing. Like, it's got you going back to the website and stuff. It's very well done. It's a lesson of its own. It's its own lesson in its execution, if you will.
One of my favorite books.
Yeah.
So Nick, what do you say?
I was kind of wondering, it's been a little quiet here in the chat thread. So I'm just wondering if my little experiment I put out there about people being able to retain more, which was a bit of that behavioral economics thing, worked. And it sounds like no comments so far live. So I just want to encourage folks to either send it in a separate email or do it like some of the other folks did, do it on the blog post there. Because obviously we want to hear from you. And if it's not worth doing live and there isn't really a big demand from our audiences, then we don't want to stick with the status quo, which is to simply do this live and invite audience interactions. If that's not actually seen as valuable by audience, we might want to switch up our format. So do let us know either live here before we conclude or soon afterwards if there's something keeping you from the way we've designed it thus far. If the status quo of our first 4 episodes, we can change it up to make it more natural for you to comment with us. We envision this being the best show when people are influencing what we talk about live.
Also want to remind everybody, Impact Live, August 1st and 2nd in Hartford, Connecticut, at the Society Room.
Hang out with Bob and I live for 2 days. And there will be open bar. I mean, there's going to be there's a lot of great things that we've done around this. I think you folks will really enjoy.
And where else are you going to be able to have that opportunity to spend quality time with some of the industry's and most successful people I know in my network? But some of the people have just done amazing things that can help you solve any issues that you're going through. It's all part of the package. Make sure you sign up for it. The web address for Impact Live is our web address, impactbnd.com/live. And you can purchase tickets right on the website.
It's going to be special.
So bringing it home, bud.
Yes.
This will conclude another episode of the Impact Show, where we discuss the digital marketing skills that are in demand right now. We discussed behavioral economics, and we talked about our main topic of the day, challenging the status quo and getting people to take action. We would love your comments. We talked about that, so send us the email, comment on the Facebook thread, send us any message as a chat. The show is going to be published on iTunes as a podcast, on YouTube, and obviously on the Impact blog. If you like what you heard, also consider giving us a review on iTunes. We would appreciate that and love you forever.
Yep. It's like a little digital tip you can give us. If you appreciate the time that we've invested here in trying to make the program, that type of feedback really spurs us on. And for those of you who are in the Northeast, I hope you're enjoying this beautiful weather we've got outside, and you keep it going through the weekend. Have an awesome weekend too.
It is gorgeous out right now.
It is so nice. I'm going to go out and take my next phone call outside.
I'm also excited, Nick, about next week's topic. We're going to be talking about converting inbound leads to opportunities.
Now we're getting tactical.
A little bit more tactical next week.
Gritty.
So make sure you join us live on Facebook. Same bat time, same bat channel. On Facebook Live at 1 o'clock next Thursday, 1 o'clock Eastern time. And until next time, get out there and make it happen.